So I start this movie and I start getting a little mad. And it's not the movie's fault. At least not this movie. I'm shaking my fist at you, Deep Red. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Wow, what a movie title. I fucking love it. It's very eye-catching, and I was like, yep, as soon as someone mentioned this to me, because I've been watching a lot of Argento lately, he was like, oh, what about the Bird with the Crystal Plumage? I'm like, what about that? So here we are. It is written and directed by Mr. Dario Argento. This is his directorial debut, and with music by Ennio Morricone. Oh, what a combination. I was very excited. Now, why was I mad at Deep Red? Alright, so there might be spoilers in this review. The movie's really old, but that's alright, that's fine. And it's because this movie, whilst being different to Deep Red, shares a lot of similarities. It features some kind of artist who witnesses a murder. That artist who witnessed a murder, when they witness it, they both see something, and then later on they're like, what was it that I saw? I'm like, okay, that's Deep Red's plot. And at first I was mad at The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, because I'm like, what the fuck, man, this is the same movie, except this one was done 5 years previous to Deep Red. Then I'm like, come on, Deep Red. So there is that. What I will say is, I think this movie's a lot tighter than Deep Red. There's no supernatural element to kind of muddy the waters. It's pretty much a straightforward giallo film or thriller, and I really freaking liked it. Not only, even though it should have really annoyed me that, yes, it's got plot similarities to Deep Red, but the mystery, I think, in this film is done a lot better. It's weird too, because this film is probably going to get the same score as Deep Red, and it sounds like I'm shitting on Deep Red, but that movie's dripping with amazing imagery and atmosphere, and I'm happy with the score I gave it. I really am. Hey, cat's out of the bag. This is getting a 9, by the way. But what I really liked about this one is the pacing's a lot better. There's less sexism too, which I like. Though there is a sidelining of female characters, which, okay, maybe a sign of the times, that's fine. But the mystery here is amazing, and there's a few curveballs and red herrings. Now, when our lead character in this movie says, there's just something about this attempted murder that I just can't put my head around. I'm like, well, I didn't see anything we missed. Did I blink and miss it like I did with Deep Red? I didn't. But, so whilst these two films have a similar plot, what I did love about this movie and that movie are the twists. I did not guess the murderer in either flick. In fact, this one pulls the same thing. I'm like, oh, it's him? Oh, it's him? It's really, okay. And this movie definitely has this kind of Hitchcock feel, more so than some of the others of his I've watched, because at the end of Psycho, you get this like cop or psychologist telling you what had happened to this person's mind and why they've done the things they've done. And at the end of this movie, there's like a shrink on the TV kind of explaining why this is why this person's the murderer, and this is why this person helped the murderer. I'm like, okay, that's very Psycho, that's very Hitchcockian. This one also isn't as violent as you might think. You watch the trailer and you've maybe seen other Argento films, you know they can be quite gruesome and bloody. This one isn't all that gruesome or bloody. It's still got that tension, and it's still got all of that, but there's less blood and less gore. In fact, there's no real gore at all. The twist in this movie got me. I didn't know what it was, and when it happened, I'm like, okay. I was also thinking, how does this tie into a bird with crystal plumage? And it does really well. So I like the twists. I like the acting performances. It's not quite up there with Deep Red. I think the acting performances in that are a bit better because you've probably got a filmmaker who's doing a lot better. Got better actors. David Hemmings was amazing in that. But the performances in this one are good. The cops are in this one more than they are Deep Red. They're kind of sidelined, and it's just left to David Hemmings to solve the mystery. In this one, our lead character works with the police in order to catch this maniac that's been killing women. It's really well done. And the music, I can't stop this unless I've got to talk about the music, and I loved it. And I think I liked it more than Goblin. Don't hurt me, don't hate me. Now, but the way I explain this is, I can listen to a Goblin soundtrack like Deep Red, Suspiria, and I can just listen to individual tracks from those soundtracks and be like, yeah, this is really awesome, this is cool, and kind of get into a mood with those that might necessarily tie into the movie I'm watching. Whereas Ennio Morricone's score fits the movie better, fits movies better. I might not listen to the individual tracks of this soundtrack, but the soundtrack is incredible, and it works perfectly with what you're watching on screen. There were a couple of times in Deep Red where I'm just like, oh, my ears, what the fuck? None of that. So, I guess the one that's more replayable, I guess, is the Goblin stuff, but the one that suits movies more, I'd say, is the Ennio Morricone score. But I am biased. Ennio Morricone did score my favourite movie of all time. So there you go. All right. As you know, I give this a 9. And I'm not changing Deep Red's score either. I think they have similarities, but there's enough differences in both and some really nice twists that made me go, all right, you got me. Well done. So, if you haven't already watched Deep Red, maybe check this one out first. Because you might be annoyed that this one that isn't as famous as Deep Red has the same plot or whatever. Who knows? Watch this in Italian, because what I am discovering, with subtitles of course, because what I'm discovering with these Argento movies, and they'll do it for a lot of foreign films, it's not just Italian flicks, but for international release, they'll have weird edits. Like, I didn't know that there was an international version of Deep Red. That international version is 20 minutes shorter, and it takes all the humour out of it as well, which is kind of strange, because I like those bits of levity in Deep Red. So, if you can, don't watch the international versions. If you can, watch the Italian versions of these flicks with the subtitles, because you're getting the full vision of the director, I guess. And it's better to judge a movie on that than some edited international piece of crap version. That's kind of how I sit on that. So give me a like, dislike, share and subscribe, all that stuff. And I've got more Argento coming.